Hello everyone, I am John the Brawn of Gameland, and I have some stuff to share with you. Check this out. When I set the audio on ScumVM, I typically try to stick to global because it's easier to change what things are quickly. My one exception is using 16 color AGI, in which case I set individually to default. Space Quest 1, Leisure Suit Larry 1, King's Quest 1, all those real early ones, I just set the sound to default. Anything else, I will typically set to this. And this is the highest performing option to choose for your sound. Now, with some of the most recent, like mid to late 90s, there are some games like King's Quest 7 or Space Quest 6 where I might decide to go ahead and use this. But for that to work, you have to make sure that you select a sound font here. In the case of MT32, as long as I put ROM files directly into the ScumVM main file, I don't have to mess with any of these or any of these. The simplest way is to find the ROM drives that are copyrighted and legally bound. So I'm not going to show you how to get those, and I'm not going to show you how to put them in. That's the one thing you have to figure out on your own. But basically, the two ways that you mainly do that is you either put the ROM drives into each game file and just paste them into each one, or just put them in the main ScumVM file. All right. So don't be thrown off by this. That's just sitting there ready for whenever I switch to this. But the main one that's best to use most of the time is this one. In fact, if you stick to this, it'll work with most games. I like to get a little picky about it. I like to make things as accurate as possible, but it's not real necessary. If you want to just keep it simple and just make sure that your games sound decent throughout your whole list, your best bet is to just put ROM files in the main ScumVM where your ScumVM executive file is at. Put ROMs in the same directory as where your executive file is at. And then just select that and just basically leave everything else the way it normally sits. You don't need to mess with any of that, and you don't need any of this stuff. Everything is, for the most part, the way that you need it from that point on. All right, so check this out. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. A lot of the game frowns upon making mixed characters, but you know what? Rules are meant to be broken. So when I make a fully rounded mixed character, like the way that I like to do a lot, the very first thing I do is make sure that I put points where there are no points unless it is not necessary to pass the game. And the one place where I am not going to put it is climbing. Because with a fighting character, you learn how to climb through the bonus reading material in the Guild of Shadows of Darkness in Mordavia. So it's not necessary. Yes, it is a whiles off, but you know magic. And in the second game, in Trial by Fire, you learn the levitate spell. So climbing is not something you want because in the very next game, you learn the levitate spell, which takes care of all your climbing needs for the most part. And you learn how to climb. You open up climbing points and start gaining that skill once you read the Fighting Guild book in Mordavia anyway. So you eventually learn it. And for the most part, you don't need it as long as you have magic. Now, I would like to point something out here that a lot of people look over. You can practice your strength, you can practice your agility. In fact, you can even practice your vitality really by deliberately getting hurt. Granted, it does cost points or gold to buy your vitality points or to get your vigor potion or whatever. But there is one skill that's a little difficult to just deliberately do something to rack up points. Yeah, you do build luck with things that you do through the game, and sometimes practicing stuff does throw some luck points at you. But it's, for the most part, fairly obscured. I can practice throwing just by standing there throwing rocks. I can practice climbing by standing next to a tree and climbing. I can practice stealth by sneaking around all over the place. Magic is slightly more difficult because if you run out of magic points, you have to take magic potion or get some sleep. Same maybe with vitality. There are some things that you can deliberately do. I mean, yeah, it does cost money to get magic potions and vigor potions when you're trying to rack up your magic or your vitality points. But luck, not so straightforward. I mean, if you have extra points and you don't know what to do with them, where should I put them? Where should I put them? Trust me, put them here. I mean, I don't know why we haven't dealt with that very much. I haven't seen very much on that. I don't know why we haven't addressed that. If you're doing a straight up fighter and you're wondering, oh, should I put it in strength? Should I give it agility, or should I give him more vitality? No, no. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's the magic user, the fighter, or the thief. I don't care which one you are choosing, or if it's a mixed character. Unless you're doing a mixed character and you're needing to put your points in where you're trying to make a mix, right now I am showing how to make a mixed character that's the most advantageous to you. But throughout the thing, I'm going to be making some comments here and there on what to do if you're just doing a fighter or just the magic user or just the thief. But if you have extra points, if you find yourself saying, "Oh, where should I put that?" That should just automatically put you right here. If you find yourself saying, "Where should I put these points? Where should I put this stuff at?" Just without even thinking about it, just put them here because there's absolutely no straightforward way of gaining that later on. It just gets thrown at you at different times. When you progress in the story, occasionally you'll see, "Oh, that went up." If you're practicing your sneaking or you're practicing some other skill, occasionally you'll see luck go up with that, but there's absolutely, from what I'm seeing, there's no straightforward way to rack up luck points. So later on in Trial by Fire, there's a part where the genie appears and says, "What do you want to wish for?" And a lot of times that's what I wish for right there. Occasionally, communication points. Later on, there's communication points, and it can get a little monotonous having to walk around talk to everybody. But at least there's a way of racking up the points. The difference, though, is that a lot of times you can't rack up the communication points if you've already gone around talking about everything. It, you have to take the opportunity whenever topics get fresh or whenever the story plot moves forward, then go around talking to everyone. And that can get really monotonous, trying to go around doing all the things you need to do, but also remember to go around talking to everybody about everything. So sometimes I'll throw some points at communication, or I'll wish for communication points when the genie appears in Trial by Fire. Other than that, for the most part, you should just, without even thinking about it, it should just be a no-brainer. Put it on luck because you never know when you're going to get a chance to add to it again. So, that being said, let's move forward. This seems like a quiet little town. On the porch ahead of you are two people. The standing one is large, rather ugly, and playing with a yo-yo. The seated person, smoking a pipe, looks like he might be the sheriff. The man with the pipe greets you. "Welcome to our town. You are lucky to have made it down from the mountains before the snow blocked the pass again. It's gotten pretty dangerous outside of town, I understand. Many monsters have been trapped around here with the late snow. Between them and the brigands, we certainly could use a hero around here. I am Sheriff Schultz Meisterson. This is Otto von Goon, my assistant. What do you call yourself?" "John the Brawn of Gameland." "Good luck in your quest, John the Brawn of Gameland." Okay, so if you like points, you want to try to have a short conversation with each character as much as possible because you get those little points for the first thing that's said. This Adventurers Guild hall reminds you of the one in your hometown. I always wondered if someday a prequel would get made of that because there's a lot of mentioning here and there of where he comes from, but the game doesn't really visually deal with it. Anyway, the traditional moose head and other stuffed monsters, Saurus, troll, griffin, dragon, cheetar, and the terrible ant that adorn the walls. That's kind of funny about the moose because off and on there are moose heads throughout the game. There's one in Legis Sulari 1. There's one in King's Quest 3. Just you kind of keep your eye out. The moose head prop. Look, moose. The plaque under the moose says courtesy of Sierra Online Prop Department. That's funny because the moose head appears throughout many different games. Now here's the biggie. You always want to read the logbook. The last entry was made several years ago. It says Baronet Bernard von Spielberg killed a troll near the Flying Falls on this 23rd day of October. And sign the book. You sign your name into the adventurer's logbook with a flourish. It always says the same thing in every game. That's one of the first things you want to do is read the logbook and then sign the logbook. Because if you don't do that, you miss out on some pretty important stuff. So I'm going to save it here. And that's all for now. I may pick up from here later on. So be sure to like and subscribe. And that's all for now. Have a great day, everyone.